all in this fight together. Please continue.
Okay, I just want to clarify one thing, that the people that are really leading this fight are the people of Iceland.
Yes.
And
yeah, but I mean, you come up in all the major newspapers around the world, and of anybody, you really are the figurehead, and a quite well spoken one as well. So I mean, it's your face there on the front of the ship.
Well, in some aspects, but however, it's been a lot of people working on this, and so I don't want to take all the credit for it. One thing that we should also bear in mind when it comes to the Icelandic saga, the ISAF saga, and the entire collapse, is that I met with John Perkins last year, just before I got elected into Parliament, and I asked him, what should we do to get rid of the IMF? And he told me that he was the most important thing we could do, and I think the same applies to you in the States and all over the world, is that you are the creator of your reality, and if you want changes, you are going to have to do something, okay? And, obviously we were hit by an economic hitman. I don't know who it is or if there were many, but it is blatantly obvious. And it was very interesting how Iceland, when we were actually doing really well, they decided to go into the biggest constructing a huge dam in order to give Alcoa dirt cheap energy that nobody knows the price of. And that's one of the battles, is just to find out how cheap they're getting the energy. And the policy of the government that was previously, and the government that was previous to that, was basically to sell Iceland's energy dirt cheap. They were basically pimping Iceland. If you would read some of the proposals on getting all the aluminum smelters into Iceland, which is, by the way, one of the last pristine nature in Europe, you would be shocked. So there are many aspects to this saga, and we're just in the beginning of understanding how deep it goes. And it will be very interesting to see who are the corrupt people, and if the nation has the guts to have them punished in one way or another for how they have sold out our country. And the interesting thing as well is that when the British decided to use the Terrorist Act on Iceland, very similar to how the Chinese took over Tibet. The Tibetans didn't have any army; they had a few people with guns that were hunters. Icelanders don't have any army or military, and our cops don't even carry guns. So, it's probably the least threatening nation in the world to being passed on side by side to Al-Qaeda and Zimbabwe and North Korea. So, but the lesson to be learned for the rest of the people in the world is that we are the first one to be hit. You could be next.
Absolutely. The establishment is now moving on to gobbling up first world nations. They're doing the same process here. So this key vote coming up, I mean, is Iceland going to be able to not just stop the bankers from robbing you, but actually arrest some of these criminals, or at least put arrest warrants out for them and signify that they are the bad guys? I mean, that will destroy them in the PR war if they're rightfully indicted for fraud.
Yeah, like some of them actually still own the media, the main media, and they're still allowed to own it. It's unbelievable. But I think that we will have there is a huge wave of anger brewing again among the nation. And if the president would not have allowed us to give us this responsibility of voting on this particular bill, there would have been another revolution, and this time I fear it would have been more violent. The other one was relatively soft. But if the bankers and the people that are responsible for where we are at now are not going to get punished and put into jail, or I would like to see them expelled from Iceland forever and ever, then we will have another revolution on our hands.
Well, I mean, what do you call people in thousands of demonstrations, hundreds, every day taking over government buildings, protesting in the streets, saying no, no, no. I've seen polls in Iceland where the vast majority are upset and saying they're not going to be part of it. Can you give us some of those numbers?
Well, when we started protesting, I come from that sort of grassroots level where I've organized protests and been part of protests for a long time in Iceland. We was just a handful of us in the beginning. There were actually more foreign media than us. However, it gradually grew into thousands of people. And because the numbers you would get in the Icelandic media would be always according to what the police estimated, because the media couldn't bother to go and count it. We only got accurate numbers when the foreign media came and counted the protesters, and it was thousands and thousands of people in some of the big protests. And then when we had the soft revolution that in the end drove the government away, I don't know, there were people protesting day and night, and it was in the middle of winter here. It was really cold. I had a friend that got pneumonia from standing outside, and they were doing this. They got all these drummers and all these people that were banging on pots and pans, and it was sort of similar to the revolution in Argentina, the pots and pans revolution, and that is what it was called in Iceland. It was extremely noisy, and it was driving the people in the parliament crazy. So maybe it was the noise that got them to resign. I don't know, but it was getting quite violent. There was a huge Christmas tree outside Parliament that the Norwegians always give us every Christmas, and they took that and burned it down. And this sort of protest had not been happening in Iceland since we joined NATO, because people
when the people started burning stuff down, the government started backing off.
Yes, absolutely, and also the police was attacked and they actually didn't have enough mace. They were running out of mace, so they started to use tear gas and stuff.
And the moral is, when people actually finally get mad and take action, no amount of SWAT teams, no amount of garbage can stop them. And people always forget in revolution the power of fire. And I'm not saying that's something that needs to go on here, but I mean, look, a true revolutionary force cannot be stopped when it's got right on its side. And so now they're backing off. Also, people took over some buildings too, didn't they?
Well, they did not take over the parliament or anything like that. They did get into the National Treasury, but they didn't take it over.
They were just inside.
Yes, they were just inside. I
guess the media spun it and called it a takeover, just like for months they wouldn't even show your protest, or they'd show the corner of a small group and say, these 5 people are out here. And then if they would have panned the camera, which YouTube showed tens of thousands, that's how they minimize that. We've had events here in Austin with 2,000-3,000 people. The news will come shoot the back of the crowd or a corner and only show 5 or 6 people.
Yeah, that's so typical. And I've actually, been following what's going on in the States and seeing that, the news that are not really broadcasted in the main media. And it's an entirely different situation. I mean, there are pretty grim things happening in the States right now. And
exactly, and they're trying to make the opposition right-wing, controlled by Glenn Beck and the Republicans, so that they can get back into power and continue the fraud, just like Obama continued the fraud. But the truth is, the Tea Parties are really libertarian and grassroots.
Yeah, I've been actually following them, because we're also working on this level that we think left and right is redundant, and that what we really need to focus on are the issues and our causes. And our movement, for example, does not define itself as left or right. Our main objective is to bring more power to the people, or the power that they rightfully own, back to them.
So what's going to happen? What's going to happen? I mean, I know you can't tell the future, but right now the banks are starting to back off and saying, okay, you don't owe us as much money. I mean, they should go to jail, much less not.
Well, the thing is not really in the hands of the banks anymore. It is in the hands of the British and the Dutch and the Icelandic governments. And that is the big problem. It is being driven through the financial ministries of these countries, instead of taking it as what it is. It is a foreign affairs issue.
Well, why can't your parliament march in and take over the Treasury?
There's nothing in the Treasury. It's just
no, I know, but I'm saying you're saying the bureaucracy is still making the decisions, but you're the boss. You're the people's representative. I mean...
Well, the thing is, the petition and the fact that we get to vote on it, I really hope that they will not take that away from us. They can take the voting from us by pulling back the bill. But I really think it is extremely important that we have this national referendum, because it will set an example for that the people can, again, call for national referendum if a certain percentage of the nation calls for it.
And that's coming up soon.
Yes, it's set for around 27th of February. So we'll see what happens in the meantime. Since I'm acting chairman right now for the movement, I get to go to all the heads of state meetings and so forth, and we're trying to form a sort of a joint approach to this, which I think is very important, that the politicians who are supposed to be